Hello, is this Daniela?
Hi, this is Daniela. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
So you got a hold of me and you had stated that in order to treat lifelong depression,
hmm
you took a psychedelic trip that consisted of both LSD and magic mushrooms.
Correct.
Can you describe that? Psychotropic presents Daniela.
So basically, October 17th, 2016, I lost my two best friends in a car accident, yeah, in a motorcycle accident. They were on the motorcycle. In one shot, I just lost, my support line. And then a few weeks later, a week before Thanksgiving, I had lost my job. And my whole entire life, I had been dealing with suicidal depression. I had been seeing a therapist. I had tried all kinds of medications and everything. Nothing was working. And of course, when I lost my job, I had hit rock bottom. And I had prepared my means to kill myself the day that I had learned that I got fired from my job. But thankfully, my friend Joanne busted through my door at 1 a.m. and stopped me from doing anything to hurt myself. She didn't, I'm sorry, she took me back to her place. She took me to my therapist the next day. And then my therapist said to me, all we have left for you right now, Daniela, is electroshock therapy. And I was terrified. I screamed, "Get your hands off my brain, Delilah. You're not frying it because it doesn't work like yours." I was scared. And at the same time, Johns Hopkins was releasing all of this information about how they were treating anxiety with end-of-life cancer patients. All of that new psychedelic research was coming out, and it just so happened I had mushrooms and LSD at home. I had been trying mushrooms, microdosing to kind of ease with seasonal depression the year before, and it was helping. And I just wondered, maybe I needed an extra little primer in my brain for the mushrooms to work. I was thinking back to that study from the University of South Florida where they gave rats psilocybin, and they found that the rats that they gave psilocybin overcame PTSD much quicker. And they also regrew new brain pathways or something. I'm not really sure 100% about the science. So I was left with that information. And I was also listening to this Gloria Estefan CD, Miss Little Havana. And there's a song on there called Medicine. And the lyrics are where you can fly to a land with unicorns. We got the medicine for our mind. She says it's a song about music, but that's a song about psychedelics. So I took that as the inspiration that I would take LSD and mushrooms together. I didn't tell my therapist what I was doing or my doctor. I told my friends what I was doing. My friend Joanne and another friend, just so I would have somebody to text or call in case things got extra weird. I I took the tab of LSD. I put it under my tongue. And I started preparing a mushroom tea because I knew that the mushrooms were hard on my stomach. I heated up the water. I let the tea steep. And then I took a shower while the acid was kicking in. And the water was feeling real good and feeling real nice. And, then the light was feeling really good and really nice and everything. And then I was like, you know what? I got to get out of this shower because this shit's kicking in. So I hop out of the shower and I drink down this mushroom tea, and I have to choke it down because it tastes like ass. It tastes like earwax coated ass. It's so disgusting. So it was about 3 grams of mazatopec mushrooms and a tab of acid. I don't know how many micrograms or anything were in that tab. 125 maybe, I don't know. Nobody's really a chemist or a scientist really laying these things out. So took the acid, took a shower, chugged down that mushroom tea. And I went outside and I smoked a cigarette, and I can feel that anxiety come up. That crunchy energy coming up. Um, I just like, I knew I just had to hurry up, finish my cigarette, grab my computer, and go inside. So I do exactly that. I finish my cigarette, I grab my computer, I come inside, I hit YouTube, and the last thing my hands could do was hit the Miss Little Havana channel on YouTube. It was all I could do. And then boom, my world explodes in every fucking color you have ever seen. Every single color. And then like I turn over to the window and boom, now there's like these faces and all of these colors, and it looks like a Tool album because there's all like these tribal patterns kind of swirling and like those lines like on the front of a Tool album, almost like that Alex Grey art. And this crunchy anxiety that's building and it's building and it's building, it pops. And that half second before you come, that half second before you come where your body tenses up and you're like, oh yeah, I'm stuck like that for the next hour and a half listening to the Miami Sound Machine. I can't move, At one point my body gave out and I'm still just like feeling so much ecstasy and joy and everything. And I can't move. I can't move. I was in the same position, but now I was on my side. So after like an hour and a half of that, like I was on the come down. So I kind of shook myself a little loose and my vision was still doing like that wooba wooba thing that happens on psychedelics. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, it's not like the walls are breathing, but they kind of are. Just everything is weird in your vision,
Yeah, almost like if it's the same thing I'm thinking of, it's almost kind of like I liken it to a fun house where the walls, they're not exactly straight up and down. Sometimes they're curved. Sometimes it seems like the room itself is distorted. So one wall kind of like goes off at a weird angle.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Yes. You feel fuller for some reason. Like I felt like I was taking up more space in the room. It was really weird. Like the room was smaller or I was bigger or something, but the proportions were the same. So that was actually kind of fun and weird at the same time. But I got up, I shook it off, and I felt very light, which is something that I hadn't felt before. Depression, I had always felt like these heavy chains weighing me down. And now I just felt light. And I said, well, this is nice. So I went outside and I had a cigarette. And I had lived here since 2004. This happened in 2016, this trip. So I lived here since 2004, and everybody had told me about this beautiful pink Florida sky, and I never saw it until that night. That night was the first night I saw it, and it was so beautiful it brought tears to my eyes, like happy tears, not sad tears, happy tears, because it was so beautiful. And it was like December, so the sky has all these like pinks, magentas, and oranges, and they kind of fade into like these blues and blacks, into like the sunset that reflects off the ocean. It's really beautiful. And when I saw that, I started to cry a little bit out of joy. It was so beautiful. I finished my cigarette and I came inside and I decided I was hungry, which is odd because I hadn't eaten for days before. I'm that person when I'm depressed, I don't eat. Like people have to force the food down my throat. So I was hungry and I open up the fridge and all I see is bottles, beer bottles, liquor bottles, whiskey bottles, all manner of alcohol is in that fridge. And I realized at that point that, God, my alcoholism had really gotten out of hand at that point. I took every single bottle out of that fridge and dumped it in the sink. I emptied out all of the alcohol in the house. The only alcohol I have is like the old bottle that my dad bought when I was born. Like every parent, I guess, did that back in the day, so you open it on your wedding. And to this day, I really don't drink anymore. I haven't drank since that night. Maybe like on a birthday or on New Year's, I'll have a glass of champagne or something, but that's it. One drink and I'm done.
Did you attribute your depression to your alcoholism?
No, I think that I guess I don't know really how to answer that. I think they kind of went hand in hand. I think I was really, really depressed, and I think I was trying to find an outlet for it. So, of course, alcohol was always around and handy, even when I was a kid. It was a cultural thing. I grew up in an Eastern European household. So if you wanted alcohol, you didn't even really have to ask. Nobody really batted an eye if you took a shot.
Why did it occur to you that your alcoholism had taken a turn for the worse? Why did it take that state? What was significant about that state that made that so tangible, I guess?
I don't know. I guess it felt so normal. I would come home, I would take a big swig of whiskey. I'd, slip into my pajamas. I'd take another swig of whiskey. I just didn't really think much of it back, while I was drinking a lot. And I know it's kind of hard to really imagine that because it wasn't really affecting my life so much. I was still going to work. I was still making a living. You know, I was never showing up to work drunk or anything like that. Of course, I wouldn't show up to work drunk, but when I would get home, I would drink pretty much until I went to bed that night.
Would you drink yourself kind of into a stupor, or did you kind of just maintain a steady buzz and kind of go about your business in the evening?
Yeah, I would maintain like a steady buzz and go about my evening, not blackout drunk. Have I gotten blackout drunk in my life? Sure. Of course we have. Maybe about once or twice I've gotten blackout drunk, but of course, you know when to stop. And, the 2 times I got blackout drunk, gin was involved. And I'm just saying gin is bad. Gin is bad. I learned my lesson. No more gin.
You dump out all this liquor and all these beers and everything that were in your fridge.
Yeah.
You're still high at that point, correct?
Oh God, yeah. I was on the come down, but you still have like that crunchy up anxiety. I don't even want to call it anxiety at that point. It's just like an upper. You have like that upper feeling, like you can move around, but your perception is still off, right?
Yep.
So I clear out all them bottles, and in the back of the fridge is a solo box of macaroni. So I was like, cool. And I cooked it. Tripping balls. I cooked a pot of macaroni. And it was a bit of a challenge, but those were actually the best noodles I ever made. And I text my friend Joanne. I'm sorry. And in that text, I'm like, I'm okay. I just ate a whole plate of food. And she texts me back. She's like, get out of town. I'm like, yeah, no, I ate a whole plate of food. And she was really impressed because, again, I wasn't eating, period. So the music is still going on YouTube. And I look over and it's still Gloria Estefan playing. And this, this video Oye is playing. And at one point, she looks at the camera and winks and nods. And when that happens, boom, everything around me just sort of disappears. And I see this little girl screaming in a dungeon, clawing at the walls like a scared rabid dog. And I don't know what to do.
This is not in the video.
No, this is not in the video. Like, this is happening now because the trip hit me back.
Yes.
Yeah. So, boom. I see this girl. She's screaming, get me out, get me out, get me out. Clawing at the walls, the stone walls of this dungeon with, like, these torches, these lit torches, like those old-timey medieval cartoon dungeon things. You see them in all the old movies, too. And I get closer, and I get closer. And I get closer slowly, and she sees me. And when she sees me, she starts to scream more and claw furiously, like she's trying to climb out, anything just to escape. And she's cornered. And finally, I get close enough, and I'm just like, little girl, what's wrong? And she tells me, I'm afraid to live. And I laughed. I laughed, and I said, oh, my God, that's my problem. That's my problem this whole time. I'm just afraid to live. No problem. Okay, I got this. A scared little girl afraid to live. No problem. So I look over, and there's an open door. And I say, little girl, go through that door. Go open that door. And she says, no, I'm scared. And I said, don't worry, sweetheart. I'm with you. I'm not going anywhere. We'll go through that door. So when I look back over, she's okay. And she puts on some armor because it's an acid trip and basically anything you imagine happens. So she puts on like this suit of armor and she takes my hand and out we go through this door. And we're walking through this field, very almost kind of like Adventure Timey, that cartoon Adventure Time. We're walking through this field and then we encounter the first obstacle, the first demon. And it's a blue cloud, it's a black cloud in a blue robe. And that black cloud in a blue robe, its name is depression. And this little girl is scared. She doesn't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And off in the distance, she sees something. And she's like, wait right here. And I'm like, what the hell? And she comes back with a band. And the band starts playing and she starts dancing. And this depression cloud shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And we move on. And the next obstacle we encounter is an electric cactuar, like a cactuar from the Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, the little cactus guys.
Yeah, the cactus guys that are shaped like the Roadrunner almost. Those, the cloud thing, whatever. So we encounter one of those, like an electric cactuar, and its name is Anxiety, and it's come to rob your soul. And again, here comes the band, and she takes this electric cactuar from behind. And she congas the damn thing to death. Oh, God, that was a sight to behold. It almost knocked her down, but she got up and beat its ass. And then it got dark and cold. And I couldn't see the little girl, and all I could hear was like a commotion, some sort of scuffle, some skirmish or something. And all of a sudden there's a little light in an opening and there's this little girl and she's beat up a little bit, kind of dirty and a little bit bruised, a little cut up, nothing too major, but something's happened here. And there's a blob on her neck and this blob is PTSD and she's frozen and she can't move. And I don't know what to do. And I look at her and I start to say, move your feet, move, come on, move. And she won't move. And in the background, I hear, when the sun is setting in the sky, everybody knows it's party time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, God damn, if this isn't the weirdest fucking thing that's ever happened, ever, to any human being. So I grab this little girl and I just scream, dance, move, dance to the beat of your heart. Go, do it now. And then she just sort of snaps back into her body almost, it seems, and she starts to move and dance and this blob falls off and shatters into a million pieces. So after that happened, I was like, oh my God, Xanax, abort trip, I need sleep. I had been tripping for fucking 12 hours at that point. I was done. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. So I took a Xanax, abort trip, and I was out for the night. When I got up in the morning the next day, usually every single day of my life dealing with suicidal depression, you wake up and the very first thought in your head is something like, oh God, I have to deal with this shit again. Or, oh God, I didn't die throughout the night. But what woke me up the next morning was that it was absolute quiet. Like, I don't know if you've ever done that. Like, it's so quiet, like you just shoot up out of a sleep. Like, why is it so quiet in here? But it was so quiet. That's what woke me up the next day. It was so quiet. I didn't have this din in my head that was like, kill yourself. I didn't have this self-destructive feeling. I didn't have this noise around me, this negativity to just self-destruct. It was quiet and it was beautiful. And that lightness that I had talked about earlier, it was still there. Like those chains were gone forever. To this day, I feel 100 times better. I have not had one suicidal or depressive thought since that night.
You are this little girl and
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of coming across these obstacles, right? The
Mm-hmm.
cloud in the cloak,
Uh-huh.
the
Electric cactuar.
yeah, the electric cactuar, and then the bulge, like the growth,
Uh-huh.
correct?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then through every one of those, the solution was to dance.
Correct.
What do you interpret that as?
find joy even in the sad times. Because if you keep harboring on the sad times, that's all you're going to feel. And with the anxiety, I think it also helps the dancing, because to me, anxiety, I picture it as pent up energy with no place good to go. So I think the dancing also helped with that, because sometimes the cure to, like, if, at least for me, what helps is, like, if I feel that anxiety coming up still to this day, I do something active. Maybe like I'll do boxing on the Wii, or I'll dance, or I'll take a vigorous walk, something that'll tucker me out and expend that energy.
I see. And so before this trip,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever think about the idea of dancing, the idea of finding joy even in the sad times?
No, I mean, I guess not really. When you're depressed, you don't really want to dance. You can't really get out of bed. You're listening to a lot of depressing music too. Like, I love Pink Floyd. But How I Wish You Were Here, we're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year.
Yeah.
That wasn't helping, I think, because it's just like reinforcing like that kind of mood, but you pick something like the Miami Sound Machine, there's not one negative kind of statement in any of their music. It's all kind of positive. Like, even the songs about heartbreak and how you want to kill yourself a little bit are still a little bit happy.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, set and setting, there we go. Set and setting. I kind of think, like, the reason nothing had ever really caught on before, nothing had ever made me feel better, even with the microdosing, like, I'm reinforcing all of that depressing stuff. But here I listen to happier music, you get to dancing, and now you're watching happier things on TV, and it just sort of spills over into every sort of aspect into your life. And I've lost 10 pounds without even trying,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's healthier than popping a handful of Xanax and drinking yourself to sleep.
This episode was produced by me, Philip Johnson. All music featured can be found in the description section of this episode. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe. Also, leave a review. Let me know what you think. Be sure to follow Psychotropic on Instagram at Psychotropic Podcast, all one word. If you're interested in becoming a supporter, you can do that by going to psychotropic.podbean.com. Just click on the Become a Patron button in the upper right-hand corner. Lastly, if you have a story that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. Shoot me an email at psychotropicpodcast@hotmail.com. Thanks again, everybody. See you next time.